We changed hats.
Welcome everyone to the committee meetings for Wednesday, November 3rd. Start off with Health Services Committee.
Good evening, everybody. We will open up Health Services Committee meeting at 6:02 p.m. I believe we have Kim Kaplan with us online.
She's there.
Kim,
Yes,
do you-
I'm on the line.
Did you have any updates you wanted to give the board?
I mean, if you want me to go through the COVID update, that would be fine. We have currently 147 positives, which has been steady for the last several days. We did have an influx of positives. Over the last 2 days, we've had another 39 positives. So that is a change. We had a little bit of a reduction, so that's really stepped up again. And do you have any questions? Anyone have any questions?
Tim, I just have a quick question. I'm getting a lot of questions from constituents regarding the schools.
Yeah.
Is there a formality between all of the school districts on the process for quarantining and contact tracing, et cetera?
Yes, well, we had discussed that before the schools opened this year. We had all come to a consensus on that. And obviously there'll be certain nuances, but we had all been in agreement and it had been fairly specific. And we were in agreement, not just with our county, but through the Capital District. And it is pretty consistent between schools, and we do meet with them at least all together once a week. And then as needed in between.
Could you send that to us? What they all agreed upon, maybe? What, in terms of quarantining and.
Mhm.
Could you maybe email that to us?
Yeah, I'll be able to share that.
All right, thank you.
Kim, how's staffing?
With staffing, it's really reduced right now. We have a lot of people out at the moment for various reasons.
Anybody else have anything for Kim? Thanks, Kim.
Thank you.
Jason, was there anything you wanted to say tonight? Okay. All right, so get right into the 2 agenda items. First one, reappointing members, Community Services Board. Rivera, Hobart, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Second resolution, budget amendment, Greene County Public Health Department and Health Research Inc., Public Health Emergency Preparedness. Davis and Lennon. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Is there anything else coming for Health Services Committee this evening? Motion to adjourn?
Motion. Second.
Rivera and Hobart, we are adjourned.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you, Tammy. I'd like to call County Resources to order at 6:05. We have 3 resolutions before us. First one will be authorizing agreement between Greene County and the Columbia Green Community College Foundation. Sean, would you explain a little bit on the dollar amount and what that'll get us, in the year?
Yes, so as you recall, last year we contributed $180,000 to the foundation. And the foundation split it into 2 segments, one of them being tuition assistance, and tuition assistance can be couched in both assistance per credit hour or also expense-driven gas cards, tolls to get over the bridge, that kind of stuff. So that 181 is pretty much split 50-50. And the tuition side of the house consumed around $55,000 of the $87,000 that they contributed, leaving about $34,000. So tonight's request would be to restore 50 to bring it back up to that original $89,000 for assistance as it comes up to the next cycle of the semesters. Again, both from a credit hour standpoint and then the out-of-pocket expenses as well. As you can see here from the activity, there was a fair number of students who took advantage of this aspect of it. Which ironically, when we approved the school's budget and our contribution to the overall operation of the budget, our numbers now flip because we've encouraged that many more county residents to attend school. And that's how our bigger budget allocation is made to the school is based upon student population. So your program is working. You have gotten a lot more county, and it's not just recent high school graduates. There are a number of people in certificate programs that are going maybe for a course. They might not be matriculated at this time, but for whatever their profession, they feel they can pick up a course. So it's been very successful. And for those of us who attended the scoping luncheon 2 weeks ago, it was definitely mentioned there is the significance of this contribution by the county. So this basically restores them to their original amount, and then they'll run this out through the spring semester and the summer semester.
Anybody else have any questions on that?
Even with this funding and our increase from last year to this year's budget, we're still below where we were 2 years ago.
Yeah, the big drop last year, that 181 last year was because our contribution went down 181. So we kept our contribution the same, gave the foundation the variance.
And then it went down another 120 from there after they had to use some fund balance. Columbia County requested the decrease. So we were actually down 300,000 last year. Now we went back up a little bit this year in the budget. So we're still below where we were 2 years ago for what we paid for our share of the college costs.
So if it continues but reverses and goes the other way, we'll obviously have to look at, are we gonna be able to continue to set this money aside?
Correct, right. And they realize that.
And the college is well aware of that too, so.
This was meant to help them during the pandemic, to keep
Right.
students going, to be able to go. And I think we accomplished that goal with that fund.
I agree with that.
And this is designated only for Greene County residents?
Yes.
Well, maybe we could encourage their foundation perhaps at some point to continue this program, you know, down the line, when we can't fund it anymore.
Yep.
Maybe their foundation would do a Greene and Columbia County.
Right, open it up to both.
Yeah.
Sure.
And that was one of the questions that came up at our symposium 2 weeks ago, was the foundation is looking internally as well to improve their fundraising activities for that very reason.
They've been pretty successful at it the last year.
I think that's something people would contribute. So I'll make the motion.
Okay.
second it.
Rivera and Overbaugh. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Number 2 is authorizing the public hearing for agricultural district number 124, 2021 review.
Glenn.
Any discussion on this? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. On a second note, Pat, there is that meeting next week at the Forestry Center in Acre. It's the annual review for inclusion, and it involves the Agricultural Farmland Protection Board. And they'll be, reviewing their add-ons or deletions there. All right. Next one is appointing member for the Columbia Green Workforce Development Board. I need a motion on this. Overbaugh. Davis. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So carried. Is there anything else to come before County Resources this evening?
Motion to close.
Second. Who is second? Rivera. We are closed. Thank you.
everybody. I'd like to call the Public Safety Committee to order at 6:12 PM. There's 4 proposed action items. Before we get into them, this evening we have with us Sheriff Kuznetsky. Pete. Everybody should have received the sheriff's report via email.
For the two. You're not getting my email. I get it out.
Good evening, everybody, and congratulations to all. This month, we did 149 civil attempts, 89 civil papers served, issued 26 traffic tickets, investigated 20 traffic accidents, made 29 arrests and 1 DWI arrest. We handled 320 calls for service and made 82 traffic stops. On October 1st, the starting jail population was 40. As of October 31st, it was 37. Corrections officers did 37 transports, traveling 1,963 miles, totaling 84 hours, moving 41 inmates. We have 1 state inmate in our custody. We did have our official opening last month, which was a success, and I would like to thank the legislature for all your support during this project. The Haverly family was very grateful for the dedication of the address and Deputy Haverly's memory. We also joined the other Capital District Sheriff's offices in an Narcan lead back program this past month. The kits are being supplied by Albany Medical Center and will be available for deputies to provide at any location or scene where they think that there's a vulnerable person before we get back to them. That's all I have for the month.
Just as a clarification on one report that we got today on the MOUs, there's one there for Columbia County and Hudson Mobile Response Team.
We removed it.
That's been removed. That hasn't been in effect for last year, so that one's not going to be in effect.
And I'm sorry, I wasn't at the dedication. I didn't find out about it until the day before when you had sent a text message. It's happening. So I don't know where that happened, but I don't remember getting an email or anything about that taking place.
Yeah, and that was a late notice, I know, and it was more dependent on the family's availability than
That was
anything else.
thrown together pretty quick, I think it was the Thursday before. We put it off twice because they were unavailable, so it was pretty short notice.
All I know is that we're going to take out a proclamation, a speech prepared. So I would have just hoped that we would have had a little bit more notice.
Sure. A couple of these resolutions this evening on the State Homeland Security Grant Program. A certain amount of, for terrorism.
Yep.
Has there anything come through the pipeline about issues going on, which we've seen in Virginia and the Department of Justice with domestic terrorist parents?
We have not been apprised of that yet. They're a counterterrorism zone 14 meeting, I think, next week or week after. But nothing's come up about that. As a matter of fact, I think the DOJ retracted all of that, if I'm not mistaken, recently, because the School Boards Association retracted their letter.
Right.
Yeah, ended up quite a mess.
So when you do these grants, who would write a grant for you?
Well, that's a standard one we do every year, and we do.
This is old money, this is,
Yeah.
it kind of has a new name.
Right, we do it in conjunction with the emergency services.
Ken
Okay.
King is the original author, working with the
Okay.
sheriff, so the money is split between EOC and the sheriff.
Well, I'm just curious. I didn't want to see the increase in funding. And part of the requirement was in for somehow the sheriff's department have to
No, we have no
investigate
mandate.
unruly parents at school board meetings or whatever. So,
No,
and then on
that's
the
a
other
direct
note,
assault on your First Amendment.
yeah,
But it could go toward training to respond to those types of events and things like that.
right,
That funding can go toward that.
right.
That's a standard grant that we get every year.
Okay. And then the next one was your funding for this, the technical rescue and urban search and rescue.
That is also an emergency services grant. I don't think I get any funding out of that, Randy, correct?
No.
Yeah, this was a
original money that was requested through Ulster County.
I think it was a couple years ago, this was.
No.
Nope.
The sheriff's office had a technical rescue.
Yeah, I have two.
Sheriff's office.
I have two deputies who are certified level 2 rope rescue technicians. They participate, but I don't get any funding.
Right.
This money, Mike, was originally requested by Ulster County for the training portion of the grant. Due to COVID and other communication delays, the state allowed us to move the funding to the equipment line to purchase needed equipment for the tech rescue.
And then are
This is
they
that
looking,
twin clothes rope rescue thing.
so are then they looking for brand new funds for this coming year then? Is this new funds?
No,
No.
no, this is old funds off of last year's.
Okay.
So we're just authorizing it from that fiscal year to
Taking,
this.
taking it from training to move over to equipment.
Okay. All right.
Crossing fiscal years and changing line item direction.
Right.
Okay. All right. All right. Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you.
From the DOC, the 911 center, we have Randy Omra.
Hey, everyone. Make it short and quick here for you. Just want to give some updates. Work has begun around the training center on repaving. A roof prop simulator has been built and cleaning of the grounds around the fire training center. Probably hasn't been touched in 25 years. So when I went down there today to see the progress, they're putting a real good coat of binder down, and then finished coats will come within the next day or two here. So thank you for showing some attention to the training grounds. They really needed it. So, call volumes, there was a total of 543 EMS calls, 225 fire calls, and 1,188 police calls, and 820 other type calls, again, throughway calls, public health, mental health, etc. There was 35 EMS mutual aid calls for the month of October. Phone calls, there was 5,061 911 and emergency admin line calls that we fielded, and there were 402 sheriff's phone calls into the EOC. So the proposed action item number 3, which is the Homeland Security Grant. For our side of the house, we're using it for camera systems, for emergency services, also to incorporate cybersecurity software, and that's a FEMA initiative. And then also paying for the I Am Responding program that we give to the emergency first responders, which is a notification when they have a call, comes through your cell phone, so on and so forth. So everything I have. Anybody have any questions?
Well, you said camera system. What, explain that.
The camera system for around the building.
Security system.
Yeah,
Security
it's
system.
it's
Yeah.
old fire.
I went down today and looked at the progress at the training center. They're doing a nice job down there. They made it a lot wider,
Yes, they have.
the drive, they're cleaning it up as you stated. So, yeah, it's about time we got down there and did that work, but it looks really nice.
Does. We were literally sinking fire trucks out of sight, out of mind on the backside. They clear off a mound of overtime dirt and everything else. So now the pitch is set right, so water will shed off the training sites the appropriate way.
And then they installed the lighting today for the soccer parking lot where you guys park also.
Yep.
The lights look nice. There are 2 dual lights on the end and 2 single lights by the fence. And they got a binder coat in there too. That looks really nice.
finish coat was tomorrow.
Tomorrow, I believe, yeah.
Sean, who got that contract?
Keller Russo. Keller Russo got the bid.
Are they in charge of striping it too, or?
I don't know who's in charge. of
They
striping.
sub it, but it's all same project.
They're doing a nice job.
It looks good.
Trucks are a little, fire trucks are a little heavier than they were 25 years ago.
Yeah, a little
Got
bit.
much bigger.
A little bit. Had much bigger, so.
They're not 1,000-gallon or
Makes
2,500.
the whole area look nice.
Maybe I got a question for you, maybe more of a policy that we can develop along the line here. Last Wednesday, we had the recycled metal fire up in the town of Cleveland.
Yes.
And the way the wind was blowing, that came all the way down as far as Hudson. That fire happened in Albany County. It really affected Albany, Columbia, and Greene counties. We had some complaints from residents because the government, whether it was the county or the towns or whoever, had not put out any announcements as to what people should do. Now, I can tell you from my standpoint, I was one of the first 4 people on the scene. We had 2 trucks, 3,000 gallons of water, and 4 people. So the last thing on my mind at that point is thinking about where the wind's going and how far down this is going down the river. But possibly for the future, and it doesn't even, it could be a whole different site with the wind direction going the opposite way. Is there a way that we can get a swift 911 message out if we have information? I mean, it was 2 to 3 hours before State Fire and NCOM got on the scene to do air quality testing, but I didn't know
I
if it
spoke
was something we could do.
to Sean about this, and all somebody has to do is just notify us. We could put it out. I don't think it should be either myself, Director Farrell, Sean, or anybody to say, okay, we're gonna put this message out. If we have somebody from the incident command system to
That was my
notify us,
thought.
hey, listen, can you put this message out to advise people that there is a situation taking place and that their air quality monitoring is taking place, so on and so forth. But that could be for anything. If we get the direct words from somebody, yes, we can. I mean, if we get
Well,
into it.
it was a multiple unit response.
Multiple counties.
So my thought was the incident commander would have been responsible for saying that's toxic. And the way the pluming of the air quality is going, there should have been a call. All right. But as you just said,
It was a different county that was in command.
well, not only was it a different county, the delay of response also probably had a factor in this issue that no decision was made to make that type of a decision. Verbose, I'm sorry. But you're right. I mean, when this is not the last time we're going to have a mega fire like this, particularly when you have chemicals or tires. At some point, there's got to be an incident commander to make that's a fire issue.
There was, like I said, there was literally 4 of us there.
Right. I got 3 calls between 2 hours, all from the watch center out of Albany. They are asking me, Randy, what do we have going in Greene County? It's not Greene County, it's in Albany County. Yeah, but Cleveland's in Greene County. No, I mean, it's not Greene County.
So can we prompt, we're getting those phone calls and we know can we prompt an incident commander or even somebody, if it's an incident commander from Albany or Columbia County, can we prompt one of our units to say, hey, can you check with incident command and see if we should be putting out any messaging?
Yeah.
I don't disagree with the people that were complaining. I just know from myself being on the scene, there was literally 0 time for anybody to worry about any of that. But they weren't wrong that there maybe should have been some messaging out there, close your windows or leave the area if you have asthma or something along those lines.
Yeah, it's anything that can be made to us. Communications is a 2-way street,
Would Albany 911 have been evaluating the pluming of that smoke out?
We had a hard time even trying to figure out what was burning. And if it wasn't for me calling the fire chief of Baltimore, we would have never known what was burning until we watched the news.
Communication.
Yeah, like I said, there was very few people there. So the
Well, it was
communication
early morning on a weekday, right? Probably the worst time for volunteer fire departments.
Most definitely.
Yeah, we were like 1,400 feet to the river for water.
For water.
It took a lot of manpower. But I just didn't know if there was a way to prompt those types of
Yeah. No.
things maybe from the incident command, so we don't wind up not informing people. I mean, as it turned out, air quality was fine. There was no contaminants, so that was
It
good.
was setting off fire alarms over at Bliss Towers.
In Hudson.
Yeah. So it
From
wasn't-
Queens.
Yeah.
With the smoke.
All right, thank you.
Randy, do you have the 35 mutual aid calls for EMS? Do you have a location as to where they're?
No, they, again, they're called that an ambulance was relocated to a different area. They weren't to specific addresses or anything to that nature, Matt. But again, that's, if Albany County calls down and says, hey, listen, can you put a paramedic at the county line for standby for Albany County? That counts as an EMS mutual aid type call. If we move Catskill ambulance to Caro or vice versa, that counts as an EMS mutual aid call. So it's not specific as to address specific. So
One other question, I get Matt to stay with the one I was gonna ask. What about the hospitals? Do they still have us all boogered up? Were they in a holding pattern?
I think Sean might be able to, our EMS coordinator might be able to.
They're doing a little bit better. We are working along with hospital administration, trying to come up with ideas where we would get earlier notifications when they're starting to get backed up. So we can start sending patients to alternative destinations if needed and have an earlier communication with the physicians. There still are times where it will get backed up. And they could have 10, 15 people walk through their doors. So we're working on getting notification to Columbia and Greene County 911 centers with a heads up, not necessarily a diversion, but hey, we're starting to get towards that peak level. Just advise, the responders that are coming in, so we can try to cut down on the times that we're tying units up for extended periods of time.
So obviously it's still in existence, but is it getting any
It
better?
seems a little less frequent than it was for a while, but there are still times where multiple hospitals are getting bombarded.
Yeah, we've seen it from St. Peter's and Albany Med last week.
Yeah.
So it's been undiverted.
All right.
Anything else? Great. Thank you.
Okay, into the proposed action items. First one is authorizing Greene County Sheriff to execute annual mandate / court-ordered contracts and or memorandums of understandings, MOUs on behalf of Greene County. Martinez, Handel, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Next resolution, appointing members to the Stop DWI Board of Directors.
Lennon.
Got Lennon, Handel. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. And the last resolution is establishing capital project number 122-2021 State Homeland Security Grant Program. Martinez, I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
One more.
One more on here. Budget amendment. And I asked him to bring it up also. The next resolution is the budget amendment to capital project H110 technical rescue and urban search and rescue. The motion? Handel. Second? Martinez. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Question for you, Sean. Well, I have Pete here, and Randy brought up security cameras out at the 911 center. What do we have to do to update the cameras around this building?
We just did, in the last week or so, we've evaluated most of our buildings. In addition, that was the first walkthrough we had, which was the EOC center.
Okay.
We're looking at it here, we're looking at record management and the point as well. We've already done them in the transfer stations that are already operational. So, this building is approaching 20 years. The units are old and tired. So we were looking at both a replacement of the existing cameras and then an expansion, including parking lots a little better as well.
Okay.
So that's probably 2 or 3 months away.
Now, is that a general fund
Yeah,
deal?
we fund balance it. I have a reservation of fund balance.
All right, I just didn't know if it came out of one.
It'll be a general fund expense, but I've already earmarked some money for it.
Okay.
Can we look at, And I don't know if we should, or if, you know, if it needs to be or not, but can we look at lighting too? Is lighting adequate?
In the parking lot?
Yeah,
Would be a good one.
I haven't had any complaints. so
Okay. Yeah, I didn't know. I mean, if you're
We
doing
haven't,
cameras.
we've added more here, we've added lights over the years, in the lower lot, and then when we did the lot next door as well.
Yeah, I thought if you're doing cameras, you look at that too.
Is that gonna, oh, sorry, Harry, is that gonna be in-house or a RFP for? Because there are
It
people,
will not be done in-house, if we need to put an RFP together, then we'll do that internally and put it up for bid.
for snowflies, hopefully.
And I doubt that. We're gonna kill a frost last night, so I don't know.
Right.
It's coming.
Anything else to come before, public safety committee?
Just one thing, we talked about EMS for a little bit, but I know I had made a request a while ago now, that spoke to the town supervisor regarding their concern with EMS. And I had asked that perhaps we bring in like the chiefs of these paramedic units, municipal units that are dealing with ambulances and find out what they feel is their need for their specific community. I think we need to continue the discussion that we had. I don't know, Sean, have you had any conversations with the local ambulance units in each municipality?
They all seem to be keeping it together, but there's stressful times with the backups and stuff. But, as far as an entire group meeting, I haven't sat down with all of them at one.
Sean, we did make a change at the EOC, at the 911 center, and being able to have the municipal agreements to let the 911 center to dispatch ambulances and move them around as they saw the need coming. But is there any work toward a mutual aid agreement on the EMS side?
They do have their agreements pretty much with their neighbors that are kind of in effect. What we've been doing lately is either myself or Randy's in the office, some of the dispatchers will keep the foresight and get things moving around. But it's about tweaking and paying attention to where the best movement is. It's not always move a unit to the same spot.
Sure.
So it's been working pretty well as a Band-Aid in a step to those directions. We've been using it more so because of the hospital backups, which is just keeping some units tied up longer, but it's going fairly smooth. We haven't gotten a lot of resistance yet because the numbers are still low for the amount of times that we're moving these units around. There's only been one agency that kind of has said, listen, we really don't want to be moved down to the neighboring area. If they have a call, just let us know, but we really don't want to eat the expense of moving. We'll kind of stay in our quarters, just let us know if you need us. So, like I said, there hasn't been a lot of resistance yet, but it's also not an everyday, all the time thing yet.
It's not
No,
every,
but I think that feeds to Matt's point. In, you know, like you just said, an ambulance company might not want to take the expense on of moving to a different area, but I think that's kind of where we were heading. If there was a need for funding in order to make that happen, then I think that's where we were kind of looking at.
Right,
maybe
that's
being
why
able
I
to
thought
help out.
maybe if we get the chiefs of each of these town ambulances or something and speak to them as to what their needs are, because from what I recall, the needs were transport issues and personnel. They don't have enough staff and we don't have enough ambulances to transport people to a hospital.
Right.
So eventually that's going to become a problem, and I think we should be spearheading that now instead of later. That's what I thought I heard from the town supervisors.
We were looking at the Columbia County model where they move the ambulances and they pay them a certain amount for move. But we've gotten no further than the discussion of that so far.
Well, we got to the point where the EOC is now able to move those ambulances on their own, which we didn't have.
They haven't got the mutual aid package though.
Right.
Well, for now, they're doing some of the movement kind of like on the kindness of their heart, but we want to nip that. There's nothing that mandates them to move, and there's nothing that financially incentivizes some of them. So before that, becomes a big, no, we're not going anywhere. You know, we kind of want to,
I'm hearing word on the street that Greene EMS wants to purchase an ambulance and is going to charge the county for that. I would like to have that discussion with our local ambulance chiefs to find out what's really going on. In each of the towns that have an ambulance service.
Yeah, it baffles me how the one company that was, what, 165 times was mutual aid, and how that doesn't equate to putting an additional crew on, so you gain the revenue for those 165 calls. That just baffles me as to how one doesn't equate to the other. Of course, that's a town decision, but
What about the situation with Kusaki ambulance service that has to go to the prisons? Has there been any discussion where we've been able to get anywhere with, state corrections on them, somehow taking more of that on, so we're not, and especially in the Kusaki area, left shorthanded on ambulances? I just don't understand why we have to be.
I'm not sure if it was the supervisor or the town supervisor, was it Rick or was it? That there's, I think there's a statutorial, a dollar amount of how much docs will pay for ambulatory service, and that's probably 50 years old. So it would have to be something done by the state legislature to increase that amount.
I think it was like the Medicaid. It was.
Was it really?
yep.
There you go. Thank you.
Local Medicaid reimbursement.
And also, if I remember correctly, they have a contract with Mohawk. But Mohawk, it's never free to be able to do that.
I think the contract with Mohawk is for a transport, not for an emergency call.
yeah. And I think some of them, they may be, I mean, it's hard to prove, but some of them seem to be minor complaints where you almost wonder if they tried to get the transport out of Mohawk. They said they were unavailable, so then they kind of escalated a little bit just to make it into a 911 call, just to get the patients out of there. So it's hard to tell if that's happening, but that's a potential that could be putting a burden on the EMS system.
So don't they have a hospital right at the state, at Kusaki?
They have a medical unit.
Yeah, be careful with the term hospital. I think they do like dialysis or, kind of outpatient type stuff.
And they have one small long-term care, which is kind of like the nursing home.
What are they currently constructing there?
It is an expanded health. Yeah,
Expanded health?
it is expanded health.
Will that maybe alleviate some of this?
I doubt it.
No?
Again, to the best of my knowledge, they're doing things like dialysis and those types of things that need to be done on a regular basis rather than sending inmates out, once a week to someplace.
And the regional medical unit in there too is the hub for this region of New York. So they're transporting prisoners in that need medical monitoring and attention out of other prisons into there. And then when they realize, well, this is a little above us, then they're calling 911. So it's not just what's currently housed in Kusaki or Greene. They take in the medical inpatients for, I don't know how big the region is.
What would happen if we were to tell them we have, they call for it and we say we have no ambulances available? Legitimately.
Yeah, they would pretty much get stuck waiting until we.
Well, no,
have
that's happened numerous times right here in the center. Then they dispatch Greenville or Catskill or Ravenna comes down. That's happened a lot.
And insult to injury, CC's going.
That might not be a bad idea to have a meeting with the administrators and stuff. The sooner the better, before school. Just make sure everybody's on the same page. The mountaintop agencies, they tend to, put additional resources on them. They've been doing a little better over the past season and a half. Just to be on the same page, make sure they have a plan of doing that increased coverage.
Sean, why don't you give me a call tomorrow? We'll organize it.
Anything else before public safety?
Motion to close.
Motion by Lennon. By Handel.